Welcome. We are broadcasting live from the mothership. You are tuned in and listening to Starseed Energy Radio with your host Jonah Bolt. Starseed Energy Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. Starseed Energy Radio goes live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, what's up, Spaceship Earth? Thanks for tuning in. You are now receiving a live transmission from Starseed Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. I'm your host, Jonah Bolt, and today we have a very special guest joining us on the show. But first, let's go over today's date. It's Tuesday, September 29th, almost the end of the month. The blood moon has passed, the Shemitah has passed, the Pope has passed, and guess what? We're all still here. With that, please check out starseedradio.com for the latest news and updates. And if you haven't called for your free piece of Elite Shungite, or if you haven't gotten our free energy information, go to starseedtechnologies.com, or you can go directly to starseedtechnologies.com, or you can call 888-400-2328. Again, that number is 888-400-2328. You can call that number anytime, 365 days a year, 24/7. If someone does not pick up, just leave us a voicemail, and someone will get back to you right away. I want to send you this amazing quantum healing stone, ASAP. It just does so many things. Stops smart meter signals, Wi-Fi, purifies water. I even have my Shungite. If you can hear that, that's my Shungite container. I drink Shungite water every day. Again, that toll-free number is 888-400-2328. With that, we're going to get started with our daily download. But first, we're going to do our quote, which is, "Warriors confront the evil that most people refuse to acknowledge." That quote is by Bohdi Sanders. Warriors confront the evil that most people refuse to acknowledge. Oh, I agree with that. That is by Bohdi Sanders. Today on this beautiful Tuesday, we're joined by Ryan Matthew Durnick from bellwetherpost.com. Please check out his website. He's always putting up news articles. Stay informed is to stay alive. We want as much information as we can so we can always make the best decisions if a big event occurs or arises. Ryan, good morning. How you doing today?
Good morning, Jonah. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you. I know there's lots of news and lots of things happening in the world, as always. So let's start off with Mother Gaia. What's happening around the planet today with Mother Gaia?
Certainly, well, in regards to solar flares, so far there's been many flares, but no coronal mass ejections on the Earth-facing side of the sun. Sunspot AR2422 is crackling with solar flares, and this very extensive and large active region has produced more than 6 M-class flares in the past 24 hours, including the intense M7.6 flare recorded by NASA Solar Dynamics Observatory on September 28th. So other than that, there's a potential for a 70% chance continuing of additional M-class solar flares and a 25% chance of an X flare, so that's gone up a little bit. So we're seeing an increase in some solar activity, which also sometimes can correlate to an increase in seismic activity. In regards to really amazing news, NASA has confirmed the existence of flowing water, actually salty water on Mars, and this was confirmed yesterday. And they said over the weekend they were going to release really riveting data and new findings. And what this tells us is that we really are revolutionizing our understanding of the planet, according to Jim Green, the Director of Planetary Science at NASA headquarters in Washington during a press conference on Monday. And Mars, as many have speculated, is not dry or arid that they once thought of in the past. And under certain circumstances, liquid water has been found on Mars. And there's really amazing satellite images that they caught of 100-meter-long streaks called recurring slope lineae, and following downhill on Mars are inferred to have been formed by contemporary flowing water channels. And so this basically has validated the fact that, as many scientists have already speculated previously, that there is water on Mars. In regards to seismic activity on the Earth today, there was a 5.4 magnitude earthquake 124 kilometers south-southwest of Kokopo, Papua New Guinea, a 4.9 magnitude earthquake 16 kilometers south-southwest of Lázaro Cárdenas, Mexico, 4.7 magnitude earthquake 48 kilometers west of Valparaiso, Chile, a 4.5 magnitude earthquake 157 kilometers east-northeast of Chiba, Barbados, and a 4.7 magnitude earthquake about 139 kilometers east of Yamata, Japan. Other than that, there was a 5.0 about 172 kilometers east-northeast in Miyako, Japan, and a 4.9 magnitude earthquake about 38 kilometers south-southwest of Timpekyon, Greece. In reference to any atmospheric goings on, there is a new tropical storm Joaquin, poses a potential threat to the Bahamas and the U.S. East Coast, and it formed on Monday evening in the waters between Bermuda and the Bahamas. It could be a threat to both the Bahamas and the U.S. East Coast late this week. And currently, the tropical storm was struggling on Tuesday morning due to high wind shear, about 20 to 25 knots, and this is basically because you're transitioning partly into going into fall now, and so the westerlies increase, so it doesn't allow storms to form, but also the fact that you have a very strong El Nino, so upper-level winds have been blowing the thunderstorm tops out of the north-northwest, and the water vapor satellites, which are visibly evident with that. And over the next couple of days, it should meander just east of the Bahamas and then pull to the north and possibly impact the central East Coast later in the week. So at the most, it's going to strengthen to is a strong tropical storm at 65 miles an hour. But other than that, there's nothing really formidable about the storm itself. And as we know, Juvenile, the typhoon that hit yesterday in Taiwan, caused extensive damage in the northern part of the island, and now is going toward mainland China. So thoughts and prayers go out to the people of Taiwan as well as people in mainland China on the eastern or the western or eastern coast of China as storm impends and heads toward that general location. In other international news, we've been talking about this for a while, Jonah, as we've said about Al Qaeda and the fact that the U.S. definitely supports them very subversively and covertly.
Trains them, gives them money, but please continue.
Oh, definitely, and this is coming out of Al Jazeera. A U.S.-trained Syrian rebel gave equipment to Al Qaeda affiliate. A military spokesman confirms rebel unit handed over vital equipment to the Nusra Front in exchange for safe passage in the region. So you make deals with devils to give them some equipment in exchange for safe passage, and then they probably use that later for bombings and stuff like that. So these Syrian rebels, trained by the United States, gave some of their equipment to the Al Qaeda group in exchange for the safe passage. And the U.S. Central Command said late Friday that roughly 25% of the equipment assigned to the Syrian rebel unit was given to this faction, the Nusra Front of Al Qaeda, earlier in the week. In exchange for the safe passage, Air Force Colonel Pat Ryder, a U.S. Central Command spokesman, said that the command is looking into the incident, but the report contradicts information the Defense Department provided earlier in the day, which said reports of U.S.-trained Syrian rebels defecting and missing equipment. Oh, so they lied and said they lost equipment initially. So that's interesting that they would just be dishonest initially and then finally come out and say, actually, we gave it for safe passage to Al Qaeda, which apparently Al Qaeda was responsible for 9/11, as you know the history, and also, if I'm not mistaken, the number 2 gentleman of Al Qaeda also died at the Pentagon years ago. So this isn't some new revelation if you've been following that kind of information for quite some time, as Jonah and I have. And as we know, yesterday the United Nations summit was going on. There was a clash though between Obama and Russian President Vladimir Putin, and the fact that Russian President Vladimir Putin supported Assad and Obama considers him to be a terrorist, and so there's a little difference in how they agree with one another. So they're clashing at how they're going to ally themselves together and to work in helping Syria. So they even though they said that the United States was willing to cooperate with Russia as well as with Iran to try to end the civil war in Syria, the two big powers did clash over whether to work with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, because I'll tell you why. The other reason is because over the last couple of years, Russians have sold a lot of armaments to the Syrian President Assad on the order of a couple $2 billion. So I could understand if you want to keep making money off of that, and the fact that now into this 4-year civil war in Syria, a little over 200,000 people have died and millions have been driven from their homes, which is again conflagrated and added to the ongoing refugee crisis in Europe. So this is just food for thought. People have to realize why the refugee crisis is to the level it is right now, that is really affecting the European Union countries. It's basically because of botched foreign policies that are pushed out mostly by the West, and we cause these basically dysfunctions that then exacerbate the fundamentalist factions, create more unrest, more terrorism in the Middle East, and at the same time, then we come in and try to be the saviors of everything, and it's called crisis capitalism. People don't understand what this is. You create the problem, you come in with a solution. It makes money for a couple people. So, in regards to other,
that's right,
other news coming out, Volkswagen was warned years ago about illegally tampering with basically a device that would reset the car to hide the true amount of the emissions going out of the car, which is 40 times. And of course, last week, midweek, the former CEO Winterkorn, he resigned. Now assuming that role is the head of Porsche. So hopefully that they can right the ship of Volkswagen. But I'm sure they're going to have a lot of litigation, a lot of lawsuits, because they fraudulently sold a product that they said was very safe for the environment. And it turns out the EPA, because of an independent study, shows, these cars are emitting 40 times the regulated amount of greenhouse gases. So
BS. 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 Yeah.
All BS. Yes. Very, very full of it. Very full of themselves. And on to an interesting news report coming out from the Wall Street Journal. The FDA nominee, the new FDA nominee, received industry fees. The government says Robert Califf donated consulting payments to non-for-profit groups. However, under President Barack Obama's nominee to lead the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, he received more than $200,000 in consulting fees from pharmaceutical companies, from 2009 to 2015. And these fees were donated to non-for-profit groups, a government spokesman said. Maybe he pocketed some as well, who knows. But I would say that Robert Califf, I would say he is definitely a Game of Thrones individual, because what you notice is these people are very self-serving. I understand people need to get ahead, need to make money, but at the expense of your time.
Is he the official Game of Thrones person of the day, Ryan? Is that what you're saying?
I think Robert Califf, yes, he's most definitely the Game of Thrones person of the day.
There you
because
go.
This gentleman, he got $205,000 from companies like Johnson & Johnson, Merck Pharmaceuticals, GlaxoSmithKline. This guy's, it's a business as usual in Washington. You get the people that make money convolute with companies that make drugs and basically cause a lot more problems than good. And again, that goes hand in hand with crisis capitalism, because if you eat at McDonald's all the time, you end up getting sick. And then you look at who invests in McDonald's. You have a lot of affiliations with pharmaceutical companies, and people should realize that all those fast food restaurants are definitely in collusion, on a side note, with these pharmaceutical groups. Because why? Because the pharmaceutical groups, then when you get sick, they can come and give you the drugs to make you better.
They sell you the
Not
drugs.
totally better.
Legal drug dealers.
Yeah.
That's right. I just want to say one more article before you go, Ryan, and this is NASA scientists find evidence of flowing water on Mars. Wow.
Oh, yes.
Imagine that. And for all of us out there who think we're the only ones on planet Earth, let's not forget that they just found THC on a meteorite. Another interesting story. Interesting, huh? But I guess as small-minded people think, we're the only ones out there floating out in space. Not true, people.
We are.
Ryan
we are,
Matthew
Joe.
Durnick.
You didn't know that?
Oh, yeah. Ryan Matthew Durnick, thank you so much for your news again on bellwetherpost.com. Check out Ryan's feed on Starseed radio as well, and also his Bellwether Post. He's always putting up new articles, so stay connected, stay informed. Thank you so much, Ryan. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Jenna. Take care.
All right. And next, we're going to be joined by our special guest of this show. We have Miss Julie Ketterman. She is an attorney at law, but she is a specific attorney that is really battling many cases, and a big case that we have a issue with, I should say a problem with here in the U.S. To give you a little background, areas of practice is criminal defense, federal and state, family, juvenile, CPS, mediation. She's also a member of the U.S. Courts of Appeals, Fifth Court, U.S. District Court, Southern District of Texas, Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, the State Bar College, State Bar Crime Committee, and State Bar Grievance Committee. In 1999, Julie earned her law degree of South Texas College of Law. Julie handles all types of criminal, family, juvenile, and CPS cases. She is licensed to practice in both federal and state district courts. Julie works in Harris, Galveston, Broward, and Waller counties. Julia is married to criminal defense attorney and firm member Colin B. Annan. She has 3 daughters, Orella, Danielle, Kelly, and 2 stepsons, Augustus and Nikki. With that, Julia, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. How are you this morning?
I'm good, Jenna. How are you?
Doing good. So we have you on the show today specifically because of what's happening with the child cases and CPS and things like that. But if you would just give us a little brief background on where your passion first began to these types of cases. Did one of your children have an experience? Did one of your friends have an experience? Did CPS come in and do something specifically? How did this arise where now you're sort of like an advocate for that?
Well, how it started, John, is I fortunately, no, they have not had to knock on my door, but I was appointed years ago to a CPS case before I even knew, kind of what it was, what I was doing, by a judge out in Brazoria County. Kind of said, well, I kind of don't know what I'm doing, but he said, well, I think you'll be good at it. So I started learning from there, and as I started doing cases, it became very clear to me very quickly, and I mean within like the first year, that something was just wrong. That these I got appointed to a lot of the cases where I represented the parents, and the judge did that because I did criminal defense also, and so many of these cases, the parents have what we call parallel cases. They'll have a CPS case on the civil side, but then they'll also be criminally charged, for instance, like injury to a child or something like that. So it became very evident that these parents were basically being mistreated. They were being railroaded, and then I saw this trend that CPS was just treating people so poorly and really focusing on those families that were either minority or simply poor, uneducated, that type of stuff. And so that just made me angry. And then as I started looking deeper and deeper into each case, and now fast forward like 10 years into it, 17 now, but 10 years, then I started realizing that they're making money, that CPS is making money off of this. And then I started seeing the trend of how minority families or black families are treated differently than the white families, that white babies are treated differently than the black babies. And so I just kind of started putting it all together, and it kind of made me sick. And then as I saw, then you sit around and you think, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just imagining it. So I started doing the research, and the sad thing is it wasn't my imagination. It's not only, all over Texas, it's all over the United States that this is happening. And it's become corrupt. It's become, I think, criminal on part of CPS. Morally wrong. Pick a word. They're abusing families, I think, and they're tearing families apart. and I think they've lost their mission. I think they've lost what their purpose was.
And we see this across the board thing, I think, Julia. When we see like Planned Parenthood and Enron and these other big corporations that are, out there to help the people, the Bernie Sanders. I mean, all across the board in every sector, from stocks to parenting to Planned Parenthood, we eventually see these really disgusting scams and people that are part of it that are not for the people. Can you give us a couple examples when you said you see how they mistreated black babies versus white babies versus, Hispanic babies? Give us some examples. What do you mean by that? Can you give us a couple of stories of examples that you directly experienced?
Yes. What you will see on the board is if they remove, let's say we have a family, a white family with young children. Let's say two kids with under 3 years old, and you see also on the other side of the street a black family with 2 children under 3 years old, and CPS gets called on both of them, regardless of the reason. And let's say that what they'll do is they'll remove the white children before they remove the black children. They will tend to work with the black family longer to prevent removing those children. And the reason they do that is because the placement's not as easy. But even if they ended up removing the children, okay, on both sets, because ultimately that's what they do, because that's where they start making their money, the second they remove those children. Statistically, the black children will be returned to the home and the white children will not if they are adoptable. And that's the key word. What CPS looks for is children under 3, white children, that they're the hot commodity. So you see it almost like they're following what they're supposed to do when they're dealing with the black family, if that makes sense. The code, their mission says that they have to make all reasonable efforts to reunify a family. Well, they will do that. They will go beyond that if it's a black family, because the kids just aren't as adoptable. But when you get the white family, they're not going to make those same reasonable efforts or take that same step, because overall what they have done is they have become an adoption agency, and fostering now is a shortcut to adopting a child. Where years ago, when you would think of a foster parent, you thought temporary basis, and that's really what it's supposed to be. But they've changed things now, the legislature, to where you can become a foster to adopt family. And what that means is you foster a child, but if the parental rights are ultimately terminated on that child, basically you get first dibs on adopting that kiddo. It goes as far as you could actually, you fill out a form stating, you put in an order is what you do, what you want. You'll take a baby, you'll take an infant, you'll take a sibling group, whether you want them to be white, whether you want them to be girls, boys, you place an order. And once that child is placed with you, if mom and dad don't do what they're supposed to do, and if other relatives don't step up, and sometimes even if the other relatives do step up, after about 7 months, that foster family then has legal standing to join the lawsuit to adopt that child away from you.
Wow. So statistically, from what you've seen, is that it is the white children that are really being taken, because they're much more prone and open to being adopted in the long run, which in turn is making the system money.
Correct. It's white children are number 1, mixed race babies are number 2, and if you look at the statistics, Black children statistically are picked up and removed. There's a higher percentage of Black children removed from homes on a monthly or yearly basis than white children. However, there were more white children per capita adopted than Black children. Does that make sense? Did I say that correctly?
Wow.
So the percentages don't match up. They don't. And even you can look at the statistics of the percentage of Black children waiting to be adopted versus the percentage of white children waiting to be adopted. It's vastly different.
Wow. Now, in your position as an attorney and lawyers in Child Protection Services, what is your role in this? It's to get the child back to the original family, correct?
Correct. If I am appointed or as the attorney ad litem for the child, the law says here in Texas, and basically I say here in Texas because that's where I practice, but I have also studied nationally, and all states are about the same. Number one, always the goal should be reunified with the family at all costs, as long as the child is safe. If that is just not possible, the second alternative must be, and it's not a maybe or if you feel like it, it's a must be a road.
Excuse me, Julia, hold on one second. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we get back, you can jump right back into your thoughts. So hang on right there. We'll be right back. You're listening to Starseed Radio.
Run with the warriors, armors on my chest plate. Meet you with the battle horns, blaring at the west gate. No time for dead weight, I'm moving vertically. Will I miss the planet when I blast off? Certainly. Don't take it personally. Earthens don't understand difference.
Visualize and implement a hologram of unconditional love above your head. This is a holographic sphere with the flower of life pattern infinitely expanding inwardly to infinity.
The all-new Sacred Geometry Shop has arrived, featuring 8 of the world's most renowned sacred geometry and visionary artists. The mission of SGS is to embed sacred geometry art, frequencies, and equations into all conventional products in order to raise the vibration and help heal one's own individual life. Products include art, canvas prints, skateboards, Galaxy and iPhone cases, clothing, hats, jewelry, home decor, yoga mats, and a new sacred geometry skincare line. Enter the word STARSEED for an additional 25% discount. Log on today to sacredgeometryshop.com and feel the vibration.
The Coral Bay Domain is an exclusive community for people with an environmental consciousness and self-sustaining spirit. It will be the Caribbean's first totally green and off-the-grid residential development. This development showcases doing more with less and energy freedom. The community is located in Coral Bay on the island of St. John in the Virgin Islands. It will consist of 16 residential units in 8 duplexes. Each unit is a geodesic dome with electricity supplied by a vertical wind generator for each unit and a shared solar array. Please visit www.domain-llc.com for more information.
Portal to Ascension is bringing forth groundbreaking information and awareness from the world's top visionaries, scientists, speakers, authors, doctors, and spiritual leaders that are assisting humanity in unlocking their true consciousness. We explore and pioneer cutting-edge information from globally renowned leaders on conscious topics through our integrated multimedia platform for online and live events. These events are designed to empower and increase awareness for all of humanity, so we may collectively shift into a paradigm based on unity, transparency, and truth. We expect explore a wide variety of consciousness relating to self-empowerment, sacred sound and vibration, UFO disclosure, ET awareness, true ancient history, quantum mechanics, metaphysics, conscious living, and spirituality. Our online platform is designed to assist you in expanding and awakening your consciousness. The Portal to Ascension website can take you front row seat live to the educators, teachers, and wisdom keepers themselves. Log on now to www.portaltoascension.com.
Radio Ranch with Robert Sales, Monday through Friday on Truth Frequency Radio.
I'm not looking for a friend. I'm looking for a Jedi Master.
Jedi Master? Yoda. You seek Yoda.
Yoda?
Clear your mind of questions. You must unlearn what you have learned. The Jedi's strength flows from the Force. That is the way of things. For my ally is the Force. And the powerful ally it is. Its energy surrounds and binds us. It binds us. Luminous beams of
All right, welcome back to the show. You're listening to Starseed Radio. Check out starseedradio.com for the latest news and updates. We're always posting up new articles. And check out synergyoneness.com, our new 5-series event, Synergy, Oneness of the Elements. We had our first one on Sunday, which was an amazing event. We have 4 more coming up, so check out synergyoneness.com. We're now joined by a very special guest talking about a very serious issue, Julie Ketterman. She is an attorney at law in Texas. We're talking about the CPS issue, Child Protection Services. Now, Julie, all over the U.S., we see children disappearing. We see children taken from their homes. We see children pulled literally from their parents' hands. What do you think is going on behind the scenes on this movement? Is it about money? Is it about taking the children and reselling them and putting them in Boys Town and getting the government subsidies from that? What do you think the core issue of all this really is?
Money is that usually what the core issue is of most things. I do believe it's money. There are a lot of people, from caseworkers all the way up to pharmaceutical companies and doctors. There's a lot of people that make money off of each child that is brought into state care. I think along with that, I think also the CPS has been given more power than I believe they should. And on top of that, the caseworkers and supervisors and investigators themselves, they abuse that power. So you've got the issue of a handful of power given to people that are not, I don't think, educated enough to know how to use that power. So they abuse it, along with the state making money. And that is just, you put those two together and it's toxic.
Now, when you say making money, explain a little bit into that. How are organizations making money off the children? Give us an example, please.
Okay, I'll give you a quick example because it could take days to list them all. First of all, the child welfare services nationwide, Johnny, is a $250 billion industry a year nationwide. When we talk about making money, when a child is taken into care, after that child has been in care at least 6 months, that child covers 12 different individuals' paychecks within the state. In addition to that, when you talk about who's making money, you've got therapists who are contracting with CPS that sees not only the children, but you've got the adult type therapists who are seeing the parents who are court-ordered to do these services. You've got other social worker type people who are doing parenting classes, anger management classes. You've got the agencies who do drug and alcohol rehabilitation. So you've got where parents are ordered to do in-house rehabilitation, things like that. They're all making the money. They're all contracted with CPS. In addition to that, a much scarier issue is you've got the doctors who are making money off of these kids who are being diagnosed with all of, ADD, ADHD. Some of them are being diagnosed with bipolar as early as like 6 and 7 years old. They're being put in state hospitals. So you've got the pharmaceutical companies who are making money off of all of these drugs that these kiddos are on. There are more children medicated with psychotropic drugs who are in state care than in the general population. So we've got an array of individuals and entities that are making money off of these kids, including that you've got your ad litem who are court appointed, who are being paid by the county. You've got the judges. You've got the CASA, the child advocates, who are volunteer, but they end up making some money off of it. So you've just got an array of individuals and entities who make money off of these children, which is why it is so overwhelming to me sometimes I call it the beast that this is. How do we fix it? Because too many people are making money off of it. So it's kind of like the drug war. Why fix it if we're making money off of it? So our kids, whether it's Harris County or Brazoria County or Texas or Illinois, who, by the way, per capita removes more children than any other state, we're victimizing these children for a profit.
This sounds very familiar to our prison system, our for-profit.
You are exactly right.
System.
You are exactly right. Just change the setting. Yes. Why fix it? Like speaking of the prison system, I mean, it's
exactly.
They spent half the money they do on prisons on, even homes for the underprivileged or things like that. We wouldn't have half of this problem.
And
they're skipping the foundation is what they're doing. They're
correct, and not just that, but just the entire way the system's run and how it's handled. When you're talking about the prison system, feeding them malnutrition food. When you're talking about going into someone's home and taking the children, they're not putting them up in the Ritz-Carlton. You're talking about taking them and putting them in horrible conditions.
Right. You're right.
Now, what are some...
Many of the foster homes are... In fact, statistically, there have been studies all over the United States that children who are in foster care suffer 6 times as much abuse than children in the general population, and they also suffer 6 times or they have a 6 times greater risk of suffering a horrific death than children in the general population. They're traumatized.
Now, when you're working with these families and working with these children, how successful have you been in reuniting families with children? How hard is it, I should say, to go against this system and get the rightful owners of these children back to the family?
It depends on the county, to be honest with you. If you're working, say, in Galveston County or Brazoria County, if I represent the child, it is much easier to reunify than other counties. Also, if you're talking about whether I'm representing a white adoptable child versus, a black family with, 4 or 5 kids, from 5 to 14. So there's a lot that goes into that. But as far as personally, I mean, I always fight to reunify if it is all possible for that child. There are situations I always say, there are situations where children do need to be removed. There are parents that do abuse and neglect. But I am more successful because I fight for it. The problem is, specifically like in Harris County, these items, they don't fight for it. So the success rate is very small because they're not fighting for it.
Got it. So when you say fighting for it, you mean actually, doing paperwork, submitting to the courts, doing their due diligence, which most families do not have a clue how to do, correct?
Correct. Many of the items in Harris County specifically, and there are a handful that do good work, but the majority of them, they're just an arm of CPS, in my opinion. They don't do their statutory duties. They don't represent the child as they're supposed to, and they're just a part of what I call the cattle call system down there. And they do this because if they don't, they'll no longer get court appointments. So you have this group of items, attorneys in Harris County that are basically riding the county coattail. And the only way to continue to get appointments is to go along with the system. And if you fight and bust the system, you're not going to get any appointments.
So, in fact, what you're saying is the system is designed as a moneymaker to extract children, to keep people in power, and to keep paychecks flowing to their bank accounts each week.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable because we don't just see this here. We see this in many areas across this country, which is why it is so important that not only do we pay attention to topics like this, to children being pulled from their homes and their families, but pay attention to all the different things that are happening across the board, because this is not the America that I was brought up and taught about. And I'm sure you too, practicing law, practicing to stand up for the people, practicing to be a voice for the voiceless, for the children, which are really the voiceless. You're the one that is stepping in to the arena to be a voice for them, to uphold what they cannot, and you're going up against a system that is designed to go against everything that you stand for. I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, what does that do emotionally to you, Julia? Talk a little bit about that emotionally. What have you been going through personally, seeing this develop over the years?
It's very frustrating. It's of course, when I was younger, you think, well, I can save the world. Now I know I can't, but I certainly try to do one case at a time. As far as emotionally, it's been a roller coaster because I have also gone through, as I've gone through these cases over the years, I've also gone from having children to grown children to grandchildren. So I've seen it as a mother and as a grandmother. And when I see these kids, many of them, Joe, are CPS is sneaky. They'll, they don't come take kids, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I can tell you case after case after case where they will go on a Friday night and they will go at 9 or 10 o'clock at night with police escorts, and they will take children from their beds. They will wake them up, take them, put them in a stranger's car. If there's a sibling group, sometimes 3 or 4 different cars. They don't know where they're going. They don't know why they're being taken from their parents' house. They don't know any of these people. They're taken oftentimes without clothes, without their favorite blanket, without their favorite toy. They don't get to say goodbye to their parents a lot of times. And then they're taken to a stranger's house, and they're just left there with no explanation. And we're talking kids that are like 3 and 4 years old, where even if you try to explain it to them, they just wouldn't get it. And I see this happening over and over and over and over, and not because the parents are necessarily abusing or neglecting these kids, but we're talking about because maybe somebody made an allegation that mom or dad smoked marijuana last Friday night, at a party when the kids were over at the grandparents' house. So we're not talking about taking kids because of drastic things, and theyese kids they're just traumatized, and you can't even begin to start fighting to get these kiddos home until 14 days after. So for 14 days, they don't get to talk to mom and dad. They don't get to talk to grandparents or aunts or uncles. Many times they're split up from their brothers and sisters, put with these strangers. The parents, on the parents' side, the kids are just taken. CPS doesn't tell them where they're taking them. They don't tell them, whose home they're being taken to. They don't get to know whether the kids are going to be together or separated. And they don't hear anything for up to 14 days. They don't know how the kids are doing. They don't know if they're in Harris County or sent to Dallas maybe. And then they wonder why kids are then they're emotionally affected. In fact, again, studies show that after kids have been removed from their parents, after 4 hours, that they start suffering more PTSD than our troops who are in battle. That's how traumatic it is to be taken from your bed and put with strangers without anybody explaining anything. And then what they do is that you see children who are traumatized by this, so then CPS then turns it around and says, well, the child must be experiencing abuse or neglect because they're wetting the bed again, they're not eating, or maybe they're overeating, or now maybe they're acting out in school, or they're becoming withdrawn. Well, duh. Why the heck? Because you just went and ripped them from their bed at 10 o'clock at night. So it's incredibly frustrating to me. It breaks my heart almost on a daily basis. I can't even sometimes imagine what some of these kids must be going through or must be thinking. And then you've always got that risk of what foster home are they being put in? There's so much abuse in the different foster homes. Or if you've got an older child, maybe 13, 14, who gets put in a residential treatment center, a group home, versus a foster home. And now we've got other, kids there and not even a mother or a father figure of some sort. It's horrifying. It makes me sick to my stomach. It makes me angry. I get so angry, which is why I get up every day and I think, if I can prevent one child from having to go through that, then that's what I'll do. Or if I can prevent one mother from not having that child, literally ripped from her arms, or then that's what I'm going to fight to do, because if one's better than none.
That's right, absolutely, and we hear across the board as well that so many of these children's placed in these boys' homes and other ones, they straight up disappear sometimes. They run away. They feel alienated. They don't know where to go. They've lost, how to get home. They're so young. We hear these stories over and over and over again. And this goes right into the point of this show, Starseed Radio, is an action-based show. We want to raise the issues, raise awareness, and take action. Because if action isn't taken, then people sit on the couch and watch Dances with the Stars and all these other stupid shows they have on that takes people away from family, which is really the core value. What I was taught was our core value here in this country was your family. I was just talking to one of my friends a couple nights ago saying, where are the kids these days? I don't see any kids playing outside. I don't see any kids riding their bikes anymore. I literally, in 2 years, I haven't seen any kids, riding bikes, skateboards. I used to be out all the time climbing trees. It's things and kids are so sheltered. They're on video games. They're on this. It's there's so much fear around, oh, the kid can't play outside. He might fall off his bike and hit his head, or, he might be abducted, or things like that. We become such a fear-based society.
It's more the if they fall and bump their head. You've got another factor of what CPS has done over the years is we now have this group of parents who are afraid to take their children to an emergency room because they have a broken arm, or they fell and they hit their head, because we've got these what they call the child abuse and neglect teams at these major hospitals, Dallas, Houston, El Paso, and what they do is they come in and they determine whether it was an accident or whether it was abuse or neglect. And of course, when we talk about the money again, these child abuse and neglect teams are run with grants. And the only way they can continue their grants is to continue to find abuse and neglect. So at some point over the last several years, accidents quit being accidents. And where, you and I may have been jumping on the pogo stick on the carport, and maybe fell and busted the chin, parents can't do that anymore, because somebody's going to call CPS, a neighbor, somebody, and now you're not watching your kids, or that kiddo's going to get hurt, and there's going to be all sorts of questions, when they get to the hospital. So the government has designed the system to destroy what I believe is the very fabric of our society, and that's the family structure. Parents can no longer discipline their children. They can no longer allow them to gain independence by riding the bike around the block, or what they now call the free-range parents. But their parents are restricted. They're restricted, and the government has done that, and it is tearing up and destroying our families and our kiddos.
It's destroying the very nature of what any society, I believe, wants to build up, which is our children. It's for our children's future. It's for our children's sake. It's what the Native Americans said. Every decision we make is for 7 generations to come. It's that value system that was stripped from this country when we came here anyways from the natives, and implemented our own Tartarian system, which is, government knows best and we know best. And if your kid's acting a little crazy, we got to put him on some psych meds because, we need to calm little Johnny down. He's got ADD, HD, and, label him. And that's what they're doing systematically, one by one. And we see this across the board, don't we, Julie? We see this across every state this is happening, correct?
Every state. And it's interesting that you talk about one decision, for 7 generations. I can't help but think that we are now and I've seen it, we are now in the 4th generation of CPS children. And I mean that oftentimes within one family. The 4th generation now, because it's kind of like the welfare system. It's a vicious cycle that once you get in it, it's very hard to get out. If you grow up as a foster child, and you have children yourself, it is very hard to keep those children out of foster care, because that's a red flag as far as CPS is concerned. If you grew up as a foster child, you surely can't be a good parent yourself. So 4 generations of families have been growing up within the foster care system. That's how tightly molded this again, what I call toxic system is, and so it is very overwhelming when you think, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? Because it's been going on a very long time, and there are a lot of people making a lot of money.
And again, that's what it boils down to. It is the pockets, the financing, the money, the earmarks, the lobbying, and it goes back to everything what we talk about in the show, which is the corporatism, the corporate giants that have taken over the system. And this goes across the board to the schooling systems, to what they're feeding our children, to GMOs, to fluoride. I mean, it's across the board from all these different systems that are really meant to dumb down society, make people complacent, make people not ask the questions, and trust even more in the government. And you are on the front lines. You see this every day, the brutality of this system, literally, like you said, at 10 o'clock at night, going into a child's home and taking them out of their bed. For what reason? Most reasons are probably not even acceptable, but the judge in that court of law is also getting a paycheck from being part of taking that child out of that bed. And at the end of the day, they themselves have to feed their family or whatever, they concoct in their head that justifies their actions. And that's it. That's the system that we're in right now. And we have to expose it. We have to get out there. What are some ways people can get involved? We have about 2 minutes left. How can we get involved? How can we raise awareness? Please give out some of your information for listeners out there that want to get in touch and help out.
I always say the biggest way is educate yourself, whether it's for yourself, for your friends, for your family. Educate yourself on what your rights are, because people need to know here in the United States that when CPS knocks on your door, it's okay to say no to them. We still are American. We still have rights, and that's how we're going to stop it, is to educate ourselves. I do have a blog. It's HoustonTexasCPSLawyer.com. I do have a blog where people can send me questions. I do my best to answer them on a probably every other basis. I can also be reached here directly in Houston at 713-652-2003. You can also just Google my name. You'll find me. I'm here. I do my best to answer so many questions as far as your rights and what can and can't be done. The key is education. The key is education, because what they're doing is social engineering at its finest. And the only way to stop it is to stand up and say no and say, I have rights, my family has rights, my kids have rights, and we're not going to let you trample on it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Julia Ketterman, for coming on the show. Being an advocate for what you're doing, stand for the children.